Our lives are laid out on a road of bumps, turns, struggles, and more. How do we respond? How do we endure adversity for learning and growth? I'm Aubrey Johnson, and we'll explore these questions and more on the road to rediscovery. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on life lessons to learn and grow from them, and of course, pay it forward and uplift others who are struggling through tough times. Now, a quick reminder that you can get this podcast anywhere you listen to your shows. If you happen to listen on Apple Podcasts, we invite you to leave a rate and review. Otherwise, we still would love your feedback. Just shoot us an email at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com. That's roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com, and tell us what's on your mind. And we'll give you a shout out in a future episode. And as always, we are truly, truly, truly grateful for your listenership. All right, my special guest made it to the semifinals of the 2022 Sports Illustrated Swim Search Competition. How about that? This experience helped her realize her childhood dream did not only involve becoming a cover model, but also a role model. Today, she empowers women all over the world, sharing the exciting prospects of stumbling through discomfort in order to grow and unapologetically show the world who they are. She is a group executive vice president, head of brand strategy, and along with her husband, launched a plant-based protein bar called the FGP Bar. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome NoorJehan Tourte to the show. NoorJehan Tourte, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks, Aubrey. Thanks for that intro. I was so excited. I felt like there was like a live audience.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, thank you. Oh, we are excited to have you here. We really are. And I don't know. I think of the movie Forrest Gump, right? And you know how Forrest Gump has like so many different features or seasons in his life. You know, there was the army, there was the football hero, and so forth. And I think we have a lot of exciting stuff to unpack of these different facets and aspects of who NoorJehan is, right? So if you don't mind, I would love for us to begin by before discussing empathy, sharing your experience with the Sports Illustrated Swim Search Competition. You know, can you walk us through that and explain how that inspired you to become a role model for empowerment?
Yeah, I think why that inspired me or how
Mm-hmm.
it did is because so much of what came from it was unexpected. What came from
I
that
see.
experience is not what I intended to get out of it, right? I went
Yeah.
in wanting to be a Sports Illustrated Search winner. I wanted to go in
Mm-hmm.
and make rookie and get featured in the magazine. That's
Yeah.
why I entered the competition because that was a childhood dream of mine, and I
Mm-hmm.
really felt like I finally had embraced all of the different facets of my identity. I really felt that contentment in who
Yeah.
I am. And
Yeah.
I thought that if I finally pursued this dream of becoming a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, that was
Mm-hmm.
me, that would embody all of the contentment that I had finally found. Um,
Mm.
I did it. Even though I knew that was a dream, I still wasn't anticipating getting that far my first try or my first shot, just throwing my name in the hat of this search competition. But when I
Yeah.
did make it to the interview rounds, I realized I just really, really enjoyed connecting with all the other women.
Yeah.
And maybe it was just the time of life, the season of life that I was in as a female, as an adult, changes. I got married around that time. I was
Yeah.
advancing in my career,
Mm-hmm.
moving to different cities. You're starting to really think about your friendships, and your friendships are starting to change. So I just got this amazing bonus of meeting all of these different women. We all had this shared dream to be a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model,
Yeah.
but we all had different parts of life that we needed to share with other people. So I came out of that with a lot of friends, a lot of genuine friendships that I made very quickly, and they kind of got me through a lot of different changes that were happening. And I think that's where I realized the more that we were all talking to one another, just connecting with women, empowering one another, I just got a real rush from that. And that's why I'm here. I think I just want to keep talking, want to keep connecting with women. And I mean that's now essentially the same reason I want to actually be part of that Sports Illustrated brand and be an ambassador, if with them or if on my own.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. It sounds like you got a lot out of this more than what you bargained for or anticipated anticipating getting when you embarked on the journey of the
Absolutely.
competition, right? And
Absolutely.
I have to say, I think the approach was spot on, right? I mean, when it comes to competitions, um, it can get pretty cutthroat, and people are looking at other people as competitors, not really willing to take that extra effort to discover the human side of
Yeah.
this person. They're competing just like you. They had dreams just like you, and you took that approach. And there's something really magical in that. Not just discovering what you did in taking that approach and
Hmm.
talking with the other competitors, but in not expecting to get to the semifinals, but then you do, and then even take that another level, right after the semifinals, getting out of it overall more than what you expected to get out of it
Yeah.
to cause you to take this path here towards empowerment and that sort of thing. I mean, that's absolutely tremendous. Now, Noorjahan, how and what did you learn about yourself um, when you didn't think or expect to make the semifinals, but you did? In retrospect, what did you learn about yourself in that experience?
I think the biggest thing I learned about myself
Hmm.
is I think when people hear about my career path or the different things I pursue,
Yeah.
someone actually just recently, and I mean very recently, like a couple of
Hmm.
days ago, wrote a letter to me and said, your relentless pursuit of success, you make it seem effortless.
Wow.
And that is a massive compliment that someone had written that about me after having spent a few days with me. But I had to take a step back and I thought, wow, is that how people perceive me? That I'm relentless in my pursuit of success? You
Mm,
usually describe very, you know, ambitious and driven and competitive people that
right.
way, that they're
Right.
relentless in their pursuit of success.
Yeah.
And I guess I had to take a step back and ask myself, am I competitive? Is that how people perceive me? Because the biggest takeaway that I had from entering that search competition is I can say wholeheartedly, I'm not competitive with other people.
Mm,
And I
mhm.
think that might be why I describe having made it to the semifinals as unexpected, because, you know, maybe for some people, it's a zero sum game that you
Yeah.
can't be friends with the people that you're competing with if you really do want to win. But I still very much wanted that win,
Yeah. Yeah.
knowing that these women that I was, falling in love with as friends also
Yeah.
wanted that win. So it wasn't a zero sum game for me. And I
Right.
think just enjoying the process of getting to know them, and the whole
Yeah.
process is really great of how they do their search competition, because you do form a community of women
Yes.
and you are in this community and getting to know one another and opening up. I was really enjoying it. And I think that I was able to enjoy all of that, and that genuine joy was coming out, and that meant that the real Noorjahan was on display, not this, manufactured. I mean, listen, I'm a strategist. I position brands for a living, right? I
Yeah.
position
Yeah.
brands against their competition. I
Right.
study the competition and figure out how to position a brand so they beat their competition. So you
Yeah.
would think that I'd be doing that in my own competition, but I guess I just really enjoyed the human connection of it all, and maybe that genuinity. I'd like to think that I was showing the contentment that I had in life, maybe
Hmm.
got me to the semifinals. So
Hmm.
the biggest learning I had is that I'm very ambitious for myself. I want to make the most out of life, and I think
Yes.
that that might come off like a relentless pursuit of success, but it's a relentless pursuit of living. I
Ooh.
want to maximize life.
Now that was worth the price of admission, what you said right there. Some people may look like a relentless pursuit for success, but for you and in within you, it's really the relentless pursuit for living, for living. That
Absolutely.
says a ton, NoorJehan. It really, really does. And like I said, it's back to the approach you've taken, right? Um, they are competitors, but they're not the enemy, you know. And yes, you can talk to them. You did talk to them. You wanted to break through us being more than just competitors for a
Mhm.
competition, you know. But let's get the human side of you, and I'll share the human side of me, you know. And I just think that I think that approach um really just caused you to achieve way more than you would ever imagine, you know. I think I also think that um in the discussions that you've had with the others,
Mhm.
um was there was there any type of societal pressures or expectations that women shared with you that they struggle with? And if so, are these common things, or did you find any of these struggles that similar to what you've gone through?
That's a great question. And I think what bonded a lot of us women that
Yeah,
are you know, any woman, any girl who,
yeah,
announces to the world, I want to be a model or I want to be a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model. You're
yeah.
going to be you're making yourself vulnerable when you announce something like that, because
Right.
with that comes preconceived notions. With that comes people's subconscious or conscious judgment of that
Yes.
statement. And I
Yes.
think what bonded a lot of us is knowing that we all came from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different careers, different
Right.
parts of the country and the world.
Yeah.
And we knew that we were in a safe space where when you say that out loud, no one's judging you. Or at least they're
Right.
not judging you for wanting to be a Sports Illustrated
Right.
swimsuit model, because
Right.
they want
Right.
that too. And
Yes.
I think that really bonds you, because then suddenly you know that you can start talking about other aspects of your life. You
Yes.
can open up about other aspects, and people aren't letting that cloud their judgment or their ability to give you feedback.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if I'm talking to someone else about my, pursuit of
Mhm.
being the head of strategy at the healthcare advertising agency that I currently work at, and if I
Yeah.
had in the same breath told that person that I also want to be a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, I can't imagine that every single person wouldn't let those two things influence one another.
Yes. Yes.
And that's human nature.
Right.
And suddenly I'm calling up, when I say I'm not exaggerating, I actually had to reschedule a FaceTime with some of my best friends that I made through Sports Illustrated Swim Search tonight because you and I were
Really?
chatting. So I mean,
Oh,
we talk all the time, but I
yeah.
can pick up the, like, two of my best friends are from that search competition. After my husband and my parents, they were the first two people I texted when I got named head of strategy for my healthcare agency.
Amazing.
And I know because they've already proven that they're not judging you for any of your
Right.
dreams. They know you can
Right.
be multifaceted because they're pursuing that life too. And I think
Yes.
that is where we all bonded, knowing that we face different types of societal pressures and expectations.
Right.
We all face different ones, but we're facing them, and then we're also trying to break those down and break down any stereotypes together. And you just bond over that. And I think
Yeah.
you really value uh, being kind to one another because
Yes.
you know that other people, whether it's like other soccer moms or it's old college friends, might be chattering about what, gosh, why on earth at this age are they wanting to do something like that? But
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you for saying that and for sharing that because I I I I completely agree. Um, it takes a risk. It takes a moment of making yourself vulnerable in that space initially at some point to where if kindness is demonstrated, kindness is reciprocated, right?
mhm.
So in that space, then you start to feel safer, like you mentioned earlier, what you aspire to be, even outside of the competition. The field of your field, of choice. And the career path that you're on, you start sharing that, and like you said, no one is judging. These are and to sustain the relationships, right? You're able to
Mhm.
do that because you've gotten past that vulnerable point,
Exactly.
wondering if this is the safe space where now this is the safe space. I can call this person and let them know that, hey, I got this promotion. They already know what I'm talking about because I shared this with them during the competition. You get so much more out of it versus someone who just competes and doesn't talk and say, nope, I'm competing against
Yeah,
them. They're the enemy.
exactly.
Uh,
Yeah.
oh, tremendous. Now, from an empowerment standpoint, Noorjahan, this is going to sound left of center. This is going to sound really random, okay? But I just want to
Oh, I
kind of
love it.
paint. Oh, you sure? Okay. I
Yeah.
want to. I want to paint a scenario. Okay.
Okay.
And this is based on a true story, quote unquote, but it is really based on a true story. I have a colleague of mine, a longtime colleague of mine. Okay, she's a bit older than myself. She's single, never had any children, never married. She lives alone, her and her dog. For years, she has had the biggest hang up on not wanting to travel or vacation alone. She has friends, lots of friends and everything, but there are certain places she wants to go that others don't agree with, and she just doesn't want to travel anywhere
Mhm.
like vacation spot alone. And I don't know. I've just read somewhere over time, is with younger generations of women, it's I don't want to say it's becoming commonplace, but it's being more explored
Mhm.
in what I've read versus someone say of her age.
Mhm.
I'm just speculating here,
Yeah.
but what I wanted to ask is, would this be an example of something considered as a societal expectation that women don't or shouldn't travel alone? That's the first part of the question. And how can how can we break through these chains that's holding us back from seeing the world on our own if we wanted to?
Okay, this is a great question. I think younger generations of
Hmm.
women have really dispelled that societal expectation of
Okay.
women um, needing to or wanting to travel in groups or with a partner or with
Yeah.
friends.
Right. Right.
And I think the other maybe reason I talk about women empowerment is because more often than not, it's us as women who might be putting societal expectations on other women. Don't
Oh, yes.
necessarily, or maybe it's not society, maybe it's other women, maybe it's because your friend, or if
Mhm.
I were in that position, or I was trying to put myself in her shoes, but what's a situation where I'm not doing something that I want to do, but I'm not doing? And what
Yeah.
usually is holding me back is I'm looking at what the other women around me that are my age, what they're
Yeah.
doing. And if they're
Right.
not doing the thing that I want to do, there's
Mhm.
something making me think, do I need to do what they're doing? That's what's holding
Yes.
me back. I'm being very vague, but what I mean, I give an
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
Like, so maybe she's seeing that all of the women her age are traveling in groups with partners, with friends. And though she might want to travel the world, what she's seeing is that anyone that she can relate to is not traveling the world solo. So it's a little bit
Right.
of maybe that's what they expect me to do, but also how do I break against that norm? So it's a
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
of the societal pressure, but I think it's also in us. And you
Yeah.
know, I talk a big game about how, you know, when people might find out that my partner and I right now we go back and forth between two cities, and
Mhm.
we're if we decide to have children, we will be older parents, and
Right.
much older than any of our friends are who have children. And when
Yeah.
we ever talk about the fact that, okay, well, if we have children, we'll be older parents and we'll continue to go back and forth between two cities. And usually people's reactions are all, oh, just you wait, you won't be able to do that. And I say, oh no, we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
I would be lying if I said that deep down I start feeling as though, oh gosh, everyone that's like me is doing it this way, and I'm considering it doing it that way. Wouldn't it just be easier to do it the way everyone else is doing it? So
Right.
even though I'm projecting that I'm going
Yeah.
to do it differently, I'm going to do it my way, I think it's
Yeah.
just human nature. So
Yeah.
I think we're putting that expectation on ourselves. So in order to break that, you know, this is always what I go back to. I think what we had earlier said, like that relentless pursuit of living. In order
Yes.
to not succumb to whatever pressure expectations are coming outward or that
Yeah.
are inward, I always go back to just this notion of I don't get a redo. I don't get a redo of
Right.
today.
Right.
So
Right.
if I don't follow my gut and do things the way that I'd like to do them, I will not get that chance again. I don't get today, January 10th, 2024 again. So I think I
Right.
always have to go back to remembering that.
Hmm.
And also, I think sometimes the fear of, you know, doing things is a luxury that and it's all in different scenarios, but some of us have the fear that holds us back.
Yeah.
And I think we have to remember that that's a luxury because some people don't have that choice. What I mean by that
Yeah.
is, you know, growing up, if you were banned from doing certain things or told that you couldn't do certain things, that's all you wanted to do. But if you
Yeah.
have everything at your fingertips, it's sometimes easier to just say, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to
Right.
do this. I don't need to try that, or I can give up X, Y, and Z. But if you're
Right.
forced to give something up, you remember that feeling and you never want to then miss out. And that's, I think, what I feel like has driven me. That if I don't, so if I put myself in your friend's shoes, if I'm telling myself that I don't feel like traveling alone, but that's a luxury that I get to choose to not travel. What There is a time where someone told me you cannot do anything until you're married. You can't do anything, and you know you won't be able to leave the
Yeah.
house. That feeling, it stays with you. So I think we have to remember that you have to value your freedom of choice and exercise
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely. You truly have to value your freedom of choice. And um, again, with majority of people doing things one way, when it comes to stages in our lives, right? Excuse me, such as getting married, having children, and balancing that work and life, and raising a family. Um, uh, it inside it consumes us if we let it, in thinking that we can't do it any other way than
Mhm.
what has been tried and proven over the years. And there's nuances as well, right? Like, for instance, you and your partner live and travel from across cities, from city to city. With For what it's worth, with my colleague, her friends are the same age as her, okay, um, but they're married,
Mhm.
or widowed, or recently divorced. um, she has a younger mindset when it comes to
Yeah.
things like traveling and social gatherings and that sort of thing. So maybe that's part of the source of why, say, she wants to go to
Yeah.
XYZ versus the others saying, no, that really doesn't do much for me. Yeah, but breaking through that, right? Breaking through that is it's incredibly challenging. I mean, even from a man's standpoint, I think the societal things that men put on men and that we
Mhm.
put on ourselves as men, because of the expectations of a man, um, we can really, really feel disenchanted if we don't meet up to those expectations.
Yeah.
And how do you break through with that? I mean, there's conventional and unconventional ways. There's plenty of married couples where the wife is the breadwinner and she
Yeah.
goes out and she brings home, and the husband is happy at home,
Yeah.
cooking, cleaning, raising the children, and that sort of thing. I mean, who's to say that doesn't work? It does. But breaking from those societal imp, nuances, those societal norms and pressures. That's a hard thing to do. Thank you for breaking that down and articulating that for us, and giving yourself as an example. I mean,
Yeah.
truly appreciate your
Of
transparency
course.
there, Noorjihan. Now, I'd love for us to talk about empathy now, if we can. Um, Want to know just up front, do humans overall in general struggle with empathy? And if so, why? Is it a global issue, or just a case by case basis? Do humans struggle with empathy?
I love this question. Like, disclaimer, I'm by no means an expert, so everything I say is just my opinion, right? I wish I was an expert on all these things. I am not. I I believe, right, but I'm speaking
Hmm.
from experience, and I think I'm also speaking from just what I observe, right,
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
people.
Your journey. Yeah.
I do think people struggle with empathy.
Hmm.
I think that humans are much better at sympathy, right? But I
Gotcha.
think we struggle with empathy,
Hmm.
and the reason being is it's such a counterintuitive notion.
Yeah.
I will never live a day in the shoes of Aubrey Johnson. I just won't. Right? But we're asking one another to constantly put ourselves in someone else's shoes when we know that every single day we wake up and we are driven by self. We are driven by oneself. Right? I mean, there was like
Yes. Yes.
a comedy bit, and I forgot who the comedian was, but was talking about the idea of having children and
Yeah.
how ridiculous it is because it's probably the most narcissistic thing we're all doing. You are literally birthing and looking at someone who looks like you, and you love them more than anything in the world. And
Yes.
again, driven by self. And
Hmm.
that's not a bad thing. It's just that if that is what motivates us every day, then when you constantly are bombarded with messages telling everyone to, live one day in the life of in the life of someone else's shoes, it's hard. It really is hard. And when you see people rally for a cause or extend and show empathy, it's when it hits close to home. It's
Yeah.
when it becomes and feels personal, right? That's
Yes.
why I think storytelling is really a great tool in order to elicit empathy, right? Because
Yes.
if the people can see themselves in that character, or if they see themselves in the victims of a tragedy or a traumatic event, then suddenly you feel empathy. But
Yes.
again, it starts with self. So I do think it's a hard notion. So it almost feels like we attack those who cannot show empathy. But I also think that those who are asking others to show empathy also themselves need to have a little or show a little grace. Uh,
Show
it,
some
it, it,
grace.
it
Exactly.
takes some time for people
Yeah.
to be able to find and feel empathy for others. I don't think it happens instantly unless it hits home and it's personal. And because it takes some time for people to feel and then express empathy, we
Hmm.
can't cancel them. We can't attack humans for being human. I think we have to give people the time and the runway and the tools and resources to find empathy.
Very well put. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, what other living being, living, breathing being on this earth is asked to demonstrate and practice empathy? You know, it's us. It's humans. And that's it is very, very, very hard to do if you have not had an instance or similar instance hit home,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Yeah, and which I don't know, in some crazy facetious way, it makes me have a whole new level of respect for actors and actresses. You know, how do you channel
Yeah.
that to where you build that empathy for the character that you're playing in any given scene, right? Whether you are to elicit anger or sadness or passion, you know,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
but art imitates life, and so in life we have those times and those moments where we are called to demonstrate some empathy. I mean, I don't mean literally someone is standing there over us saying you should be empathetic,
Yeah.
but it's whatever that event, whatever that instance that comes up that is calling you. You feel it in your heart, and you're thinking, okay, I should feel bad for this person.
Mhm.
This was a heartbreaking, tragic event, and I should, but i- it's hard to do if it hasn't happened to you or anything similar to your point that is hit home. So when someone has empathy, Norjihan,
Mhm.
and let's say they purposefully lead with empathy, one of the examples I think you mentioned was like um, like uh, like a charity event, okay? Like my father, he passed away from a breathing disease,
Mhm.
pulmonary fibrosis, I think is what it's called. And so, um, what we decided to do since he passed, like 17, 18 years ago, is every year we would meet in Pittsburgh. And
Uh-huh.
in October of Pittsburgh, not October, that's cancer. No, in August, every year in Pittsburgh, we would meet and we'd have this 5K,
Love
and
it.
it was all for pulmonary fibrosis. And so, it hit home for us. This company's been doing these 5Ks for decades, but it hit
Yeah.
home for us when our father passed. And
Yeah.
so, we wanted to do something that was bigger than ourselves, something in memory of my father, that he didn't die in vain, and something to help maybe push the technology and the
Yeah.
research for a
Yeah.
cure for this, right? So, I mean, again, the only breathing beings on this planet that demonstrates this or tries to, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
So I appreciate you sharing that. And again, my question, leading purposefully with empathy, right? What kind of virtues, what sorts of virtues do we develop within ourselves if we purposefully lead with empathy in any type of social circumstance? Like forgiveness, um what are some of the virtues that we can learn or that we develop within ourselves uh, by demonstrating empathy?
I mean, yes, I think that the one that always comes to mind is forgiveness, but
Okay.
I would be lying if I said that, I'm a Scorpio. I don't know if any of your listeners are, you know,
Okay.
aligned with their earth signs, but I think
Yeah,
I
yeah.
demonstrate a lot of qualities of a Scorpio.
Uh-huh.
But I would be lying if I said that when I am trying to exercise and demonstrate empathy, that the first thing that comes to mind
Yeah.
is forgiveness. I
Okay.
think the first thing that comes to mind for me when I'm trying to exercise empathy in a situation where
Mhm.
maybe I'm upset or I'm the one who's angry,
Yes, yes.
it's humility, right?
Mm,
Because if I can, suddenly, if you're trying to exercise empathy and trying to figure out how this person feels, or have I been in a similar situation, what was I feeling,
yeah.
you're activating another sense. You're turning on your listening skills, because then you're
Yeah.
listening to that person. And if you're listening, that means you're talking less. And if you're
Yes.
talking less, chances are you're talking less about yourself and your feelings.
Hmm.
And all of that rolls up for me into humility. And I think
Ah,
that's really, really important, again,
yes.
because I think we lead with self, we lead with our ego as humans. And I'm not saying that critically, I just think that's who we are innately,
Right, right.
and to survive.
Yeah.
But if we are practicing and strengthening that humility muscle,
Yeah.
that's the virtue that I think you get, or that I get from leading with empathy. Suddenly, the need to talk about how I feel or what I've done goes away. And it's a
Yeah.
trickle down effect, because with humility then comes the ability to, and I'll just, like in a work situation, to be able to extend and acknowledge and praise someone else's work, to
Yeah.
respect their point of view, or
Hmm.
to be kind when disagreeing with their point of view or in giving feedback. Like that's where it becomes a nice trickle down. If you can put your ego aside and, you know, if you lead with empathy, what you get is humility. And from that humility comes an ability to be kinder, to be more
Right,
thoughtful,
right.
to really to be less threatened,
Hmm.
right? And if
Hmm.
you're less threatened, you actually are more productive in a work relationship, in a personal relationship, in a conflict.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I gather from empathy.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And to your and just to kind of piggyback on what you were just saying here,
Yeah.
I think you also gain trust. Trust in those you interact with. Over time, you are come to be known as someone who is empathetic, and
Mhm.
so they trust in being around you in expressing an accomplishment they made because they know you'll be excited for them.
Yes.
Again, taking that empathetic standpoint, or they'll feel safe to be vulnerable and share a, a tragedy or something bad that happened to them. They know you'll be empathetic and you'll offer, your condolences or, say you're sorry, anything you can do to help and support. You're that listening ear and that shoulder to, to cry on. So, yeah, that is a very, very clear way of obtaining the virtue of forgiveness, but humility, as you mentioned, which in kind turns to kindness, like you said.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, awesome, awesome. Thank you for that.
Of course.
We're going to go on the flip side of this now, okay? And I think you
Okay.
kind of alluded to this earlier as far as what the answer to this question is, but and if you have, excuse me, I just wanted to see if you had any more that you'd like to add to this. So, sorry, grab some water real
Of
quick.
course.
Okay, I personally believe we all have this inner dialogue, right? Going through our heads when listening to a good friend vent to us about their problems, right? So, I don't know, maybe depending on who you are, depending on who your friend is, maybe your inner dialogue is saying, why does she always complain about him? Or um, she doesn't know real problems until she's heard mine, you know? Um, my question to you is, why do we do this, you know? And how can we turn it off so that we can be present in the moment with our friend as they're sharing their problems?
That's yeah, okay, that's a great question, and I don't mean to, uh my response is not intended to sound cocky,
Right.
but
No.
one thing I take a lot of pride in, everyone has different aspects of who they are that they take a lot of pride in, and I think I told you
Yeah.
I take a lot of pride in realizing that I'm not as competitive, but what I mean by that is that, even put to the test, I don't feel jealousy,
Right.
and I don't feel it because I actively choose contentment when I wake up
Yeah.
every day.
Right. Right.
You have to seek contentment every day. You have to choose contentment every day.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and and the only reason I can say that I take so much pride in not having those kind of inner dialogues when my friends come to me with their problems is because it it was a rude awakening when I realized that there were people that were having those inner dialogues when I was coming to them with my
Yeah.
problems. Right? You open up to someone
Hmm.
not really, and maybe I was, call me naive, but I tend to be an oversharer with my friends.
Yeah.
And I really never thought that folks were judging me for talking about my problems or that they were calling up their friends and saying, oh gosh,
Right. Right.
here's
Right.
Noor
Yeah.
again, NoorJehan, just talking about, she's at it again. I really was naive enough to think that that's not what was happening. And when that bubble was burst and I realized that, the amount of hurt I felt,
Oh my
and
goodness.
I
Yeah.
couldn't
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out, what did I feel betrayed? Did I feel silly that they were telling other folks or that they were judging me or that they thought
Yeah.
I was overwhelming with my problems? I guess yes, but the
Okay.
reason I felt so betrayed or so hurt
Yeah.
was because I couldn't fathom what they were doing because I didn't do that. I didn't
I
have
see.
inner dialogues when people were calling me with their problems, saying, "Oh my gosh, they don't know what real problems are," or,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Yeah.
we're talking about this again." I just, because I always felt so grateful that they were there for me for my
Hmm.
problems. So I
Yes.
said, "All right, I am here. I am here. Let me pay this forward that you were
Yeah.
there for me, so I'm here for you." So so that's a hard question to answer because I really, I am no saint. I mess up all the time when it comes to practicing empathy or, apologizing or asking for forgiveness or giving
Yeah.
forgiveness. So those are hard things for me. But
Mhm.
that's a hard question for me, Aubrey, because I don't know how to break that because I don't do that. But what I will say is that if you're only thinking of yourself when someone is, if you're judging someone when they're talking about their problems with you, that's
Mhm.
essentially you just thinking of yourself, right? And if you're only thinking of yourself, right, meaning
Yeah.
gosh, like they don't know real problems, or oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I'm hearing this again,
Yeah.
then you've got to take a look in the mirror and figure out what is how do you close that gap in contentment in your own life? And
Yes.
because you can't, you know, you and then also, and I know this sounds harsh, but it's a two-way street. Don't keep taking from friends and extolling your problems on them if you can't be there for them when they've got problems. So, you know,
Yep.
you got to go figure out and close that gap in contentment, because that's what I think it
Yes.
always boils down to. If
Yes.
you know, but then you have the flip side of that, Aubrey. You've got those friends who will always be there for you when you're down for the count, when you're down and
Right.
out. But when you're
Right.
on the up and up, where are those friends? Right? You've got the
Yeah.
flip side.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my
Yep.
gosh, I just love my friends. They're always here for me. Well, yeah, because you're always down. You're always
Yeah.
struggling.
Right.
And you need those same friends to be there for you when you start getting your wins and you keep winning.
Of
Right.
course.
So
Yeah.
it's such a fine line of how discontent can
Yeah.
actually make you seem like a really good friend,
Yeah.
because people will think, oh, they're always there for me. But no, they're always there for you when you're down.
Right.
Or discontent can make you a bad friend, because when that person's, you know, you think that person's winning, and so when they have a problem, you're rolling your eyes at their problem.
Yeah.
So it's a very nasty poison, discontent, and I think that is something that all of us have to work on, and no one can help you with that except yourself.
Yeah. Nurjahan, you said it's a tough question. You didn't really have the answer, but I what I heard from you was crystal clear,
Oh,
okay?
good.
Especially the last part that you mentioned, okay, with self. As soon as you said self, I went like this because I was thinking that in my mind, and I'm not saying I think that's the right answer. I'm saying that was in my mind what you were alluding to when we spoke earlier
Hmm.
of what's innate within us is self, making it hard to practice empathy and why we would revert to that. Okay.
Hmm.
But you you cleared it up even more by saying that you don't have that quality of jealousy, right? And you brought everything back full circle when you talked about how, you know, they were there for you when, you had problems and what needed to vent. So, you should be in the present moment when they are venting to you. And
Absolutely.
it's that reciprocation, right? And it's that extending kindness and empathy. But again, going back to the competition, okay, taking the approach of learning more about each other, going into deeper conversations so that you can have that moment of feeling vulnerable when you explain something, and then it's received well. You're in that safe space,
Yeah.
and you have that trust where you can explain either a weakness or deficiency or something without feeling judged, and they can do the same to you. So it's that approach, it's that reciprocated kindness, just as you have demonstrated and had at the competition, that you've explained here with this question when a good friend is venting. So I really, really appreciate that breakdown because it tells me two things. Number one, the self that's innate within us can lead us to that, but not everyone's like that. You're not like that, and you explained why. And then you talked about the reciprocation of kindness, which is what we should all kind of aim for, right? So it's a long-winded way of me just basically saying, I hear you. I uh, got the full, clear answer to that question thanks to you and your response. So yeah, thanks so
Oh,
much for
thank
that.
you. Thanks. You found the
Yeah.
red thread. I was
Yeah.
throwing
Yeah.
all these good questions at me.
Oh, no, for sure. I appreciate your insights, and the listeners appreciate your insights. So, Norjihan, tell us about the FGP bar. I mean, what's this all about? It sounds really exciting.
Thanks. It is really exciting. It's it started as a just fun side project
Yeah.
with my husband.
Yeah.
After we got engaged, I decided to go and try a plant-based diet. It was a plant-based meal service
Yeah.
through Sakara, and I just wanted to get healthier and get in shape for our wedding. And my husband noticed that I was still eating protein bars in the morning, and they weren't plant-based. So
Oh,
he asked me why I was eating those. Wasn't it breaking this plant-based diet that I was trying to be on?
yeah.
And I said, I like them. They keep me full, and all the other
Right.
plant-based bars don't taste good. I tried. So that's
Yeah.
when he just looked at me and said, okay, well, let me try to make you a plant-based protein bar. That's literally what he said. He said, I'll try to
Really?
make you one. He's like, give me like 2 weeks. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to do some research. I'll figure out how to make a plant-based protein bar. And that's just who he is. He's
Yeah. Yeah.
very entrepreneurial. He, you know, gets an idea in his
Curious.
head, and he'll
Yeah.
go after it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, 2 weeks later he comes back and says, okay, I've found some food scientists, I found some manufacturers, I put some calls, some emails
Wow.
out, we're going to get some samples. And that's how it started. And it was
Yeah.
literally us tinkering and trying to come up with a plant-based protein bar that tasted good and
Yes.
that gave me greens and that gave me protein.
Yeah.
And out of that was born FGP bar, fiber, greens, and protein. And
Fiber, greens, protein.
fiber, greens, and protein. And
All
and
right.
it's got. I mean, it's great, and it's actually, you know, we started working on FGP bar around the same time we started planning our wedding. So
Oh,
it's like our marriage and then an FGP bar, right? It's all
yeah.
growing
Yeah.
together. So
Yeah.
it's been amazing, and it has been truly a labor of love, right?
Yeah.
Uh we're not CPG startup folks like that had any experience. So we're learning as we go. We're making a lot of
Yeah.
mistakes. We've laughed at some of the like mess ups that we've had. We've had versions that have tasted basically inedible. Like people have
Yeah.
said, we
Yeah.
cannot eat these.
Uh-huh.
And we're trying to continue with new flavors. And we got this dark chocolate flavor out, and we
Yeah.
really, I don't know, we're just enjoying it. We're just figuring out what I'm good at, what he's good at.
Yeah.
And now we're in this, okay, we've got the dark chocolate bars that are out in the market right now, but we're
Yeah.
tinkering with new flavors, and we're coming out
Yeah.
with like small bite-sized versions. And it's truly is like the joy of it, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of hardships in it. Like, do not get me wrong. It's
Sure.
totally
Sure.
nice to glamorize this, but
Yeah.
I mean, just like over the holidays, we're traveling out of the country, and somehow there was a hack into our into our Shopify account,
Oh
and
no.
we were seeing this hack happen and looking at
Yeah.
each other and thinking in a span of 15 minutes, if we don't get this, I mean, it was literally like a movie. If we didn't fix whatever bug, whatever hack was
Right.
happening into our website in
Yeah.
15 minutes, we would have been out like over $40,000, right? It's like
Wow.
it was so stressful. So
Oh, sure.
I can talk about it now and laugh about it, but yeah, there's a lot of downs, but there's just so many more ups, and it's just been awesome because I also think it one, we I would never be able to do this without a partner, and I feel like there's a
Right.
security in doing that, so it strengthens our bond. But two,
Yeah.
it's making us courageous about taking risks and doing other side projects, right? We both
Yeah.
have these full-time careers, but
Yeah.
we kind of wake up in the morning and talk about new ideas and new projects, and I
Yeah.
love that. So I love that we're doing FGP bars. I feel like it's our first baby. But I also love what it's doing for us.
That's beautiful. Creating together, dreaming together, coming up
Yeah.
with protein bars together. I mean, it truly, truly is a beautiful thing, and you beautifully put it together or articulate it about how there is definitely joy in the journey. Sure, there's ups and downs, and there's huge setbacks, but it's all part of the journey. And it sounds like you guys are very mindful of the journey, mindful enough to enjoy it as you're doing and not enjoying it in retrospect, right?
I mean, isn't that what you just said? Isn't that the goal of life, right?
Yeah,
Enjoy it in the
yeah,
moment and not in retrospect. And oh
100%.
my gosh, yeah, that one gave me chills, Aubrey.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah, let's repeat that for the people in the back stands there. Yeah, so it's that's it is the true meaning of life, right? To enjoy the journey as you're going
Hmm.
through it and not in retrospect. Awesome. Well, NoorJehan, how can the listeners follow you, learn more about your great empowerment work, as well as maybe even order some FGP bars?
Well, they can find me. I'm on Instagram
Okay.
at NoorJehan Tourte. It's
Okay.
NoorJehanTourte. Short and
Got it.
sweet.
Got
At
it.
NoorJehan Tourte. And then, you can order samples. As long as we're not hacked again. No, I'm just kidding. Order samples and try the bars. At FGP Bar. That's where you can find us on Instagram, or fgpbar.com. Now give it a try. We just love to hear back. We love like hearing from folks. Again, like I'm a a healthcare brand strategist by trade,
Yes.
but I love
Yes.
employing all of that thinking to our baby FGP Bar, and hearing back from folks and all of that. And then yeah, just like to have fun on Instagram and just try to post funny things,
Yes.
empowering things, and it's nice. It's nice to be interacting with folks like you.
Oh, wonderful. Awesome. So, yes, we will definitely make sure that we have your Instagram handle, not just for you, but for the bar as well, at
Thank you.
FGP Bar or fgpbar.com. And of course, at NoorJehan Tourte. Um, NoorJehan, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and just sharing some amazing insights covering empathy, empowerment, just everything we talked about, sense of self, right? There's truly nuggets of information and insight that you've shared that I have no doubt resonated with the listeners. So again, thank you for coming on this show. I hope we can stay in touch. And if you get that book deal or whatever, bring you back on the show to talk about that or any other major milestone that you decide to spread your wings on your endeavors for sure.
Oh, I appreciate that, Aubrey. Absolutely. And thank you. These were such awesome, insightful questions and just giving me the opportunity. Thank you. I know I'm just starting on this journey, but you're one of the first, and I really, really appreciated it. And I will definitely be back.
Oh, thank you. We would definitely love to have you come back for sure. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. And hey, look, as always, when it comes to the struggles of life, we all have them. And I just want everyone to know that you're not alone and there is always, always hope. We ask that you please share this show with someone in your area, in your space, who you feel needs inspiration and support. We're all on this journey of life together, and it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of The Road to Rediscovery. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com and leave us any questions or comments you may have.